I'm Donna Burdick. I'm the Smithfield Town Historian. We're standing in the Smithfield Community Center, which is 200 years old this year, and I'd like to tell you some of the highlights and history of this building. It was built in 1820, and it was dedicated on January 25th, 1821. One of the first members of this church, one of the early members, was an African American named James Gloucester. He was a student at Gerrit Smith's manual labor school. Gerrit ran this school for, about 2 years, 1834 to 1836. And he actually wanted African American students to attend, to give them a chance in life. James was the son of a John Gloucester of the Presbyterian Church for Colored People of Philadelphia. What really became the historic setting for this building was in 1835. On October 21st of that year, the New York State Anti-Slavery Society was formed in Utica, but they were driven out of the city by a mob. Gerrit Smith, who was attending that meeting, invited the people to come back to Peterborough the following day to reconvene. And so about 400 of the delegates arrived here on October 22nd, and they finished their meeting. From that day forward, Gerrit Smith was basically an abolitionist. We also had two other conventions that came here that were anti-slavery conventions. One was in 1842 on January 19th. That was the Liberty Party State Convention. This is the one at which Gerrit Smith actually encouraged escaping slaves to take what is absolutely essential to your escape: the horse, the boat, the food, the clothing which you require. Another anti-slavery convention was held here on February 28th, 1851. At this convention, we hosted the English abolitionist George Thompson, who was very popular in the United States. He was an especial friend of William Lloyd Garrison. One of the additional speakers at that meeting was Frederick Douglass. To back up a little bit, in 1843, Gerrit Smith and his wife Anne and 27 other people who were members of this church, the Presbyterian Church, actually seceded or withdrew as members because the church would not condemn slavery. However, this was one of the largest buildings in town, perhaps the largest building in town. So even though Gerrit was no longer a member from 1843 on, he continued to be able to use this building for meetings. In 1853, the Ohio senator and Liberty Party supporter, Liberty Party was an anti-slavery party, supporter Salmon P. Chase spoke here. He would later serve as Secretary of the Treasury under President Lincoln, and later was Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. In 1858, a man by the name of William Evans returned to Peterborough. He had become wealthy as a public works contractor in Boston, Massachusetts, and he was born very poor in Peterborough, and he wanted to show his appreciation for the help that the town had given him years before. So he presented the town with $10,000. This $10,000 eventually increased to $15,000, and it became the foundation for a fund that still exists today in the form of scholarships for students. In 1859, Joshua Giddings, an abolitionist congressman from Ohio, came here and spoke. Also in 1859, a John Brown meeting was held here, praising his devotion to the trampled slave, and memorializing him following his hanging on December 2nd. The Civil War comes, and in 1861, on May 15th, Smithfield residents gathered here to bid goodbye to members of the Peterborough Volunteer Company. That was later incorporated into the 35th New York Infantry. At the end of the war, on April 19, 1865, a memorial service was held here for President Abraham Lincoln. Also in 1865, George Thompson from England, now a member of Parliament, returned to speak. This was his last visit to the United States. The church disbanded in 1868. The building was purchased by Garrett Smith, and on December 11th, 1871, Evans Academy, which had been named in honor of William Evans, opened here. The second floor, which was installed at that time, was designated as Evans Hall. Also in 1871, the Marshall clock, which is still in our tower, was purchased from Cazenovia for $500. Continuing with the many organizations who had meetings here, who spoke here, all sorts of different activities took place. In the year 1873, we had a huge variety of people who spoke here. On January 5th, Emily Faithfull, who was an English philanthropist and advocated better working conditions for women, gave a talk. On June 7th of that year, the New York State Association of Spiritualists spoke here. They actually had their conference here. On June 21st of that year, the Cuban Aid Society was organized here, Madison County Cuban Aid Society. On August 24th of 1873, former Civil War General Oliver O. Howard, who encouraged higher education for blacks, spoke here. He was a founder of Howard University and served as its first president. 1896, the Peterborough Union School was incorporated at this site. Evans Academy continued on the books, but technically that was only because of the Evans Fund being in existence. In 1937, Evans Academy officially dissolved. This building was home from 1838 to 1968 as an elementary school. It closed in February of 1968. On June 5th, 1973, it was opened to the public. And 2 years later, it officially became the Smithfield Community Center. 1994, it was placed on the New York State and National Historic Registers. January of 2002, the Smithfield Town Clerk's office was installed in the back of the building. This is the first town clerk's office in this town to ever be in a public building. Prior to this, they were always in people's homes. In 2004, this building was designated a site on the New York State Underground Railroad Heritage Trail. That same year, the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum was established on the second floor. And in 2006, the building was placed on the Madison County Freedom Trail. All of these places of being placed on these registers or freedom trails was basically due to the many activities that took place in this building that were supporting anti-slavery, abolition, and those type of things. I'm done.